Do we have to vote unanimously to vote anything else through, or does it just be 2-1? It's fine.
We've got a bunch of people.
No, we have to. If it's like ARB and they have to like unanimous vote, it's fine.
Didn't talk to anybody. He didn't come back.
He's on today.
Because I think
His 90 days is from.
his 90 days is up, and they want to come back.
I wonder if there are any new things to talk about. I didn't see. Well, it's a long agenda.
He's kind of a good guy, right?
Patrick's a good guy, but you can't pick your client.
I think you could pick your clients.
Well, depends how desperate you are.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
All right, thank y'all for coming. We normally start our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. This week, we lost a former Mayor, Elka McGoy, who served the city for many, many years in many, many capacities, and was a wonderful asset, so I'd like to start with a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah. Hey.
When did that happen?
Just a few days ago.
He was about 92 years old.
Yeah. Okay, our first item on the agenda, thank you all for coming this evening. Our first item on the agenda is the approval of May 9th, 2022 council meetings.
Move we approve.
Motion second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, motion passes. Announcements. Elsa, I think you're going to take all three of them this evening.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I do have 3 announcements to make this evening. The first one is regarding our Strategic Action Plan workshop that will be coming up on Wednesday, June the 22nd, and it will be at 8:30 in the morning. Our July 11th council meeting will be canceled. This is going to be canceled in order for staff to prepare for our budget workshop that will be coming up in July the 13th. And then thirdly, I'm making this announcement on behalf of Jennifer. This is our 52nd annual 4th of July parade. This is yet another event kicking off the centennial celebration. It will take place on Monday, July the 4th at 10 a.m. and assembly will begin about 9:45. It'll start at Estes in Patterson, ending at the Cathedral Park. There will be patriotic songs and refreshments after the parade. We'd like to thank Daily Bread, who will be donating cookies for the event. More information is on our website, and we will be promoting the event weekly via social media and our email blasts.
Thank you. All right. Next item is citizens be heard concerning items not on the agenda. I know several of you are here for a particular item, but has anybody signed up to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay. Would anybody like to speak on an item not on the agenda? Okay. Before we go to our items for
Mr. Mayor, can I ask if anyone online?
Oh yeah,
would like
yeah.
to
You
ask?
bet. I didn't know you had people patched on.
Not a problem, sir.
And if you want to go ahead and give them how they can speak too.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
If anyone is on the call and would like to make a comment on the Citizens Be Heard portion of tonight's meeting, you can press *9 to raise your hand. Again, *9 if you'd like to speak. We have one, sir.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
1 second, let me adjust my volume.
Hello,
Yes, sir, go ahead.
can you hear me?
You bet. If you could give us
Hey,
your name, please.
it's just a quick question. I don't know if this is the right group, but I was walking down Dick Friedrich over the last few weeks, and there's been a water leak that's coming up from the ground. It's about halfway up Dick Friedrich from Olmos Park up to Contour. I didn't know because I don't know which authority was to be notified. Could someone just tell me who I need to let know to address it?
Yeah, so unfortunately, by state law, we're not allowed to address comments directly during citizens to be heard, though I can tell you the strip between Divine and Contour is not owned by the city of Alamo Heights and not owned by the city of Olmos Park. And you can contact our city manager and maybe we can put you in touch with the right people in San Antonio. Kind of no man's land back there, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I got you. All right. Thanks so much. I'll follow up then. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, also, before we move to items for individual consideration, I did notice this too, that Fayreen Ballin passed away. She was 101 years old and was born on Texas Independence Day and taught in the school district for decades. And just this past March, in front of the Alamo on Texas Independence Day, they honored the Alamo Heights School District, and I was there, and she was there on her 101st birthday, and so she just passed away within the last week as well. Okay, no more bad news. We'll move on to items for individual consideration. Architectural Review Board case number 881F, request of Courtney Collins, applicant, representing James and Kathy Collins, owners, for the significance review of the existing main structures located at 423 Evans in order to demolish 100% of the existing single-family residence and accessory structures. Liddy?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is the location of the property on Evans, located on the north side between Woodway and Nacogdoches. They're only proposing to demolish the existing single-family residence with accessory structures at this time. Just due to the for full demolition, significance review was required by ARB. You'll see the cross-hatched area, those are the existing structures, in addition to the flat work that will be removed. Existing conditions of the home. It's the front view from the street on Evans. Staff did not find any historical or architectural significance to the existing main structure. Construction of a new single-family residence would be subject to compatibility review by the ARB and approval by council. The ARB did conduct the significance review on May 17th and declared the main structure as not significant and voted unanimously to recommend approval of the demolition. Postcards were mailed to property owners within a 200-foot radius. Notice was also posted on the city's website and on the property, and we did receive 6 responses in support, none in opposition. And unless council has any questions for me, I believe Ms. Collins is available on the Zoom call.
Comments, questions,
Move to approve?
motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great, motion passes. Okay, for the time being, I'm going to skip items 5 and 6 because I know there will be some discussion on that, and I don't think we'll have any on a few of these following items. Phil, we'll save our city items for the end. So let's move to item number 7. It's a public hearing, planning and zoning case number 421, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4024, Block 193, lots west 27 foot of 14 and east 1/2 of 15, also known as 309 Lamont, and City Block 4024, Block 193, lots west half of 15, 16, and east 1/2 of 17, also known as 317 Lamont Avenue. All right, we will open our public hearing at 5:42. Discussion from the public?
Mr. Mayor, would you like if I asked on?
Sure.
line? If anyone is on the Zoom call and would like to speak on case number 421, please press *9. If you'd like to speak on case number 421, please press *9 now. at
Okay.
this time, sir.
So we'll close the public hearing at 5:44 and move to item 8, discussion and possible action on planning and zoning case number 421, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4024, Block 193, lots west 27 feet of 14, east 1/2 of 15, also known as 309 Lamont Avenue, and City Block 4024, Block 193, lots west 1/2 of 15, 16, and east 1/2 of 17, also known as 317 Lamont. Letty, please.
Yes, sir, the properties are zoned single-family A, located on the north side of Lamont. They are proposing to combine two properties into one. There are existing single-family residences on both properties and accessory structures. All structures will remain, actually. You'll see the existing conditions, 317 being the larger of the two, 309 on the right. Replat establishing. They do meet the minimum requirements for lot area and width. CPS, SAWS, and Public Works have given approval of the proposed replat regarding potential impact on utilities. The replat also does meet the technical requirements of Chapter 17 subdivision code. Staff is in receipt of a application for a proposed addition. Because of the addition, the replat would not meet the Chapter 3 zoning regulations. The connection would result in a non-conforming rear yard setback to the main structure, 14.3 feet instead of the minimum 20, and 5.3 feet side yard setback instead of the minimum 6. So this is the area of the proposed connection. They're actually proposing to connect both main structures by just a glass breezeway, which would be considered permanent connection. So code does allow for council to approve the replat with nonconformities that would require BOA approval, so long as they are noted on the plat. So the required plat notes would be as follows. Does not conform with minimum 6-foot side yard setback per section 3-15. Non-conforming with the minimum required 20-foot rear yard setback per 3-16. And then any new construction in addition to or after the approval would be required to adhere to the current zoning code and or then we refer or get approval by BOA. As we did not have a quorum for P&Z on the 6th of June, the meeting was canceled and the approval of the plat by an action of the commission is the result. Postcards were mailed to property owners within a 200-foot radius and posted on the city website and on the properties. In addition, a legal notice was posted in the Express News. We did receive one response in support and none in opposition.
Just confirming, there's one resident that lives, even though there's two structures.
Yeah, historically, it's actually been used as one residence.
Right. Okay, council, any discussion?
Just a question on the, so they would have to put the glass walkway in, we would inspect it, and then is there anything else to do on the plat, or is there any other steps, or is it just, if say they really reject the walkway, or they don't ever do it, is there a time limit on this?
That's a good question. I would say that, I mean, if it's approved with the plat notes, then it's just a.
The proposed walkway, it's a proposed walkway. Right? And I'm going to eventually ask for a variance for that.
Well, the variance could be addressed here, or should they, if approved without the plat notes, then at that time we would require them to go to Board of Adjustment. So it's really whether the council decides on whether you want to approve with or without the plat notes. Do you want to require them to go to Board of Adjustment, or do you want to handle the variance here with the plat?
Okay. So the plat notes, but say they don't, okay, so the plat notes, we're saying we're gonna connect the two structures to create one structure to get it within conformity, so there's not two buildings, right, facing. What is it, I mean, comes back to time limit. So is there a time limit? Say they run out of money, right? And the project stalls, everything stops. Do we have to come back and revisit, or we've replatted this?
Well, that's why you would, I think the safer thing would be just to replat it, that way. The goal typically for a city is to plat these structures, that way they're not just sold on easy bounds and get nice square lots. And that way, if they go forward with the connection, they go forward with adjustment, that can be done. If they don't, they don't. That would be our recommendation. You still have to go forward with adjustment, don't you?
Not if the plat note is on the plat.
Oh, because y'all are just gonna have to go here because you're city council.
Well, because they're actually the proposed connection is actually what started the whole process. So they came to us wanting to connect both. We told them, no, you have two separate properties. You have to replat them formally in order to be able to connect. But I understand what you're saying. So let's say that we go through, so we put the plat note and then they don't do the connection. What happens then? I would say that we would have to, I don't know if are we able to do a conditional approval that would be only for the walkway, because the way it's noted is that everything else other than the connection would require compliance or Board of Adjustment. So am I interpreting correct that it would be just for the walkway connection?
Yes, y'all could hold the plat and not allow it to be filed, but that might give them trouble with financing the project. That's sometimes that's trouble. But do the plat and then just send it to the Board of Adjustments for the variance. But that's another step, additional cost.
I don't think I'm against the plat notes as much as the, yeah, execution. How do you ensure that it's executed? I guess okay.
You run
I don't have a way to undo the plat.
yeah, you run into a
You
suit.
can hold the plat and prohibit it from being filed until it's done. That only has certain powers for the city, but it can also have hiccups for the developer. It may make the project unbuildable.
I think it's not like it's a new structure. It's a pretty minor.
Yeah, we've done this before. I've
pretty-
seen how we've got a few houses. Actually, there's one, well, things on Rosemary that connected two houses on the 300 block. So,
Sounds like there's a lot of construction for us to be concerned with, in my opinion.
okay.
Any other questions, comments? Motion to approve? Or motion, sorry.
Move to approve.
Second?
With the plat
With the
notes?
plat amendment, sorry. Yep.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thanks. Motion passes. All right, move to item number 9. Public hearing, planning and zoning case number 422, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4024, Block 135, Lot 15, also known as 317 Normandy, and City Block 4024, Block 136, Lot 16, also known as 321 Normandy. We will open our public hearing at 5:50. Anybody would like to speak on this at the public hearing? Phil, you want to check if anybody's online?
If there's anyone on the Zoom call that would like to make a comment on case number 422, again, 422, please press star 9 at this time.
Okay,
sir.
we'll close our hearing at 5:51. We moved to item 10, discussion of possible action on planning and zoning case number 422, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4024, Block 136, Lot 15, also known as 317 Normandy Avenue, and City Block 4024, Block 136, Lot 16, also known as 321 Normandy Avenue. Letty?
Okay, yes, sir. Location of the property on Normandy is actually zoned single-family B. It's on the north side between Imlay and Arbutus. They are also proposing to combine two properties into one. Demolition of the main structure located on 317 Normandy was approved by the ARB and City Council in April of 2022. Main structure on 321 Normandy will remain. Oh, skip to the end. The existing conditions? Replat establishing, they do conform with the minimum requirements for lot area and width. CPSOs and Public Works have given their approval of the replat. Replat does meet the technical requirements of both Chapter 3 zoning and 17 subdivision codes. Demolition of the main structure at 317 Normandy will be required prior to recordation, and new improvements will not be allowed until the plat is recorded. The plat was approved by inaction of the commission due to cancellation of the June 6th meeting. And we did mail postcards to property owners within a 200-foot radius. Notice was also posted on the city's website and on the properties, in addition to a legal notice in the San Antonio Express News. And then we did receive 2 responses in support.
Council?
Move for approval? Oh,
So the existing structures there is going to remain, is just going to be yard? I mean,
They're actually proposing an addition to 321 Normandy. We have a preliminary plan for that,
Okay.
but it is all compliant with code. But yes, they are actually extending onto that side.
Nothing about what they're doing there impacts this decision here? That's not.
No, sir.
We'll have to come back.
That's correct.
all right, I'll move for approval.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you. All right, move to item 11, public hearing, planning and zoning case number 424, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot East 80 feet of 23 and 24, and City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot East irregular 40 feet part, 40 feet of 25 and East triangular piece, 12 feet of 26, also known as 516 Circle Street, City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot P-10, part of an alley, and City Block 4050, Block 63, Lots 20, 21, and 22, also known as 5936 Broadway. We'll open the public hearing at 5:54. Does anybody like to speak on the public hearing on this matter? And Phil, somebody signed up. We did it.
Yes, sir, at this time. The individual on the Zoom call ending in 5033, go ahead, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, great. Hello, this is Julian Hall. I live on 515 Circle Street. My front door opens up directly onto the 516 lot that's under discussion. This lot is small, and the proposal to build a luxury duplex on there is extraordinary. I would also say that having a there right next door to where the shopping center is, where Bird Bakery is, it makes me concerned for the parking on Circle Street. Circle Street's not a particularly wide street, and already we do see quite a spillover of parking for folks who are patronizing the shops in that center. So I'm not against having a development on that spot. I just think a luxury duplex, I think, is too much for that lot. And so I'm voicing my opposition to the replatting. Thank you.
Thank you, Julian. Anybody else who'd like to speak on the public hearing? Okay, so we'll close the public hearing at 5:56, and we'll go to item number 12, discussion of possible action on planning and zoning case number 424, a request to replat the properties identified as City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot East 80 feet of 23 and 24, City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot East irregular 40 feet of 25 and East triangular 12 foot of 26, also known as 516 Circle Street, City Block 4050, Block 63, Lot P-100, part of an alley, and City Block 4050, Block 63, Lots 20, 21, and 22, also known as 5936 Broadway. Buddy?
Yes, sir, this, it's actually several properties that combining into one. They're actually zoned B1 and 2FC. They're located on the east side of Broadway, just north of Circle. No existing structures are on the properties facing Circle at this time, and the existing commercial structure facing Broadway will remain. No improvements are proposed with this replat. The replat does include a portion of a 12-foot alley that was conveyed by the city in 2004. On May 4th of 2022, the applicant approached BOA about a variance, and they were granted a front yard setback variance pending approval of the rezone and replat requests. You'll see the different parcels here. The triangular area at the top is actually owned by 5936 Broadway, and they're under contract to purchase that. We'll be rezoning that portion to B1. In addition, half of the lot for the 516 Circle was zoned B1 as well. So they're in the process of rezoning those to 2FC. I do meet the minimum requirements for lot area and width. So the proposed lot area 516 Circle will increase. There would be now a compliant 8,093, and then there is a decrease to 5936, but would also result in a compliant size just above the minimum requirements. CPS and SAWS have given approval for the replat. The proposed replat meets technical requirements listed in Chapter 3 zoning and Chapter 17 subdivision codes. New construction will be subject to a complete plan review by staff to confirm zoning compliance, so that has not been conducted yet. The applicant approached us about obtaining a variance prior to doing that, and so we went ahead and sent that to the board with the understanding that once staff conducts a full plan review, if there are other variances that are identified during that time, they'll be required to go back to the BOA. They'll also require ARB review for compatibility and approval by council. Plat was approved due to an action of the commission on June 6th. Postcards were mailed to property owners within a 200-foot radius, posted on the website and on the properties. In addition to legal notice, was also posted in the newspaper. We did receive one response in opposition.
And confirming, this is, all we're dealing with tonight is the replat.
That is correct.
Any structure that applicant decides to build or wants to build will have to go through the formal process.
Correct. They did provide us a preliminary that we were able to share with the BOA just for their variance request. But once we get all the required documents that we need, then we'll conduct the full review at that time.
And then for zoning purposes, can you go back to the
Sure.
to the slide with the different? So yeah, so we're going to end up one lot with the red line.
Mm-hmm.
Are all these lots that are coming together, are they all in the same zoning? I heard B1.
So the triangular top portion, that is B1, and then the middle area that's identified as ownership by Philip and Margaret Hale, that whole area, the western half of that is B1. For some reason, I believe it was in the 90s that they went to the commission and were trying to do parking improvements, and so they only rezoned half of that lot. And we actually have other properties in the area. For some reason, they did not rezone the entire property. They only rezoned a portion of it.
So the zoning will actually, after this, say we approve this, there will be a zoning line that actually goes down the middle of this property still, correct?
Correct. Now, they are in the process of trying to rezone, which was scheduled to be heard at the June 6th meeting, but the rezone will be considered at the June 23rd special meeting.
So we'll vote on that again. What are they trying to rezone to?
Correct. 2FC. So they're actually down zoning.
Okay.
Downgrade.
So we're gonna be a weird lot.
You know, nothing there now. As to, will the parking be addressed, I guess, with whatever their plans are? And the
Right, during their
valid
review.
concern.
If there are any issues with where they're placed the parking, then we would address that by sending them back to BOA.
And that has been an issue, the parking there. When Paloma expanded, we worked on parking to help.
I mean, it is an
And some of
issue.
the parking behind Bird Bakery, the same thing.
The preliminary plan right now shows parking being accessed from the alley at the rear. So
Okay, so,
So in the end of the day, if we could say yes to this, and they could actually sell it, and someone could just put a house on it, single family house. Nothing. This vote would not mean
Right,
it's a
no,
multifamily
it's
division. or
purely
a-
thinking forward.
Yeah.
no doubt.
Otherwise, it sits there empty. I don't think with it in 3 parcels, probably doesn't seem that anything's getting done with it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll move to approve.
Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, great. All right, we're going to move back now to item 5. And so, Richard, we've got a public hearing, and then we've got the discussion. And obviously, there are several people here that are here for this case, and there may be some that have phoned in as well. As far as the public hearing is concerned, we'll open it up and let any citizens that want to talk discuss. Then we'll close the hearing. But the same citizens can talk during the discussion item as well. Is that correct?
If you call on them.
Okay. Got it.
I mean, that's just, y'all as council have the opportunity to ask questions to whoever you want. The public hearing is a right for them to talk.
You know, I mean,
The other section is if y'all as council need additional information to them, of them.
my thinking, instead of, we're going to see the case, we're going to open a public hearing without much up here. But then we're going to really discuss it once Letty goes through the slide information. And so my thinking is that it's up to anybody here and online, but it seems like it might make sense to have all the comments during the discussion and action portion when the presentation has been set forth, right? Without precluding anybody from speaking on the first part.
Yes, whatever you think,
Okay.
and council thinks
Okay.
is most appropriate. If you think Letty giving a presentation first and then letting them, the public, having their right to talk, as long as the public has a right to talk during public hearing
Okay, so
before y'all take action.
what we're going to do is we're going to open a public hearing after I read this. Anybody's welcome to talk during the public hearing. That'll be before the presentation. After the public hearing, Letty will go through her discussion, and then we'll open it up for public discussion as well. So you can talk once, you can talk twice, or maybe more appropriate during the second one. Okay, so we'll open with, let's see, public hearing, planning and zone case, planning and zoning case 420, request to replat the property identified as City Block 557 1A, Block 8, lots 24 through 28, also known as 227 Rosemary Avenue. We will open the public hearing at 6:04. Is there anybody that would like to speak at the public hearing? Yes, ma'am.
Reluctantly, but do I come to the microphone?
Yes, please. And if you give us your name, please.
My name is Robbie Flume, and I live at 240 Rosemary, and I know, speaking really on behalf of a lot of my neighbors, I was on vacation for several weeks when all the notices came out. I think a lot of my neighbors were kind of in similar situations. So, but when Alamo Heights, long time ago, I don't know if y'all remember, but Alamo Heights had a sign when you drove in, and it said, welcome to the charming city of Alamo Heights. And the lots on Primrose, they're all much larger legacy lots. And the corner lots on the streets, Rosemary, all the corner lots, the 4, those were also legacy lots, meant to attract people to our street. The house that was torn down was a 1920s house. The family had it. one family had it all this time since the 1920s. It had a lot of charm, it was in bad shape. At this point, though, we were told when the house was being demolished, the builder said, oh, I doubt very seriously I'm gonna, because someone brought up the fact they heard he was gonna do 2 houses. And everybody really objected to that, but he, of course, wanted to get the house torn down, and he said, I doubt very seriously I'm gonna do that. And so now we see that, his thinking must have been, he must have had that thinking back then, even though he said he doubted it. If we're gonna start building like garden homes on a street like ours, I just don't, go to Sonterra, I'm sorry, it's like we want to keep this lot one big beautiful home. It's going to cause parking problems when they're building. It's really going to be hard. There's no way they can build 2 driveways on that lot. They're going to have to go to the back. So they're probably going to want to park a lot more in the front. And then the house next door to them, my neighbor across the street, the house that was there originally that was torn down was a single story. They're now going to have to build a 2-story and look down in their backyard. And the house behind them, beautiful home, same thing. He's going to have 2 people looking down in his lot. And I happen to know, I walked by, and he built like this glass, I don't know if he knows, but because he's not living there, this glass addition, and it's all like floor to ceiling glass, and they're going to be looking right into that, his property. I just don't want to lose the charm of their city. And I really do not want to see more like 2 townhomes or whatever, 2 small homes built on this lot. It's just going to change the way we feel looking at it and where we live. The people that are living next door to it that now will have a 2-story looking down their backyard, they never want it. They don't want that. We don't want to change the quality of why we're here. And so, anyway, he can still make money, just build a really big, nice home, and we will be happy with that. But we're not going to be happy with 2 homes on that lot. All right, thank you.
Great. Thank you, Robin. Okay, anybody else who would like to talk on the public hearing? Okay. Do you have somebody online?
If anyone is on the Zoom call and would like to make a comment on Planning and Zoning case number 420, case 420, please press star 9 at this time. Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, we're going to close the hearing then at 6:08 p.m. And Letty, if you'd give us, well, let me see. We're going to go to discussion and possible action on Planning and Zoning case number 420, a request to plat the property identified as City Block 5571A, Blocks 8, lots 24 through 28, also known as 227 Rosemary Avenue. Letty.
You'll see the location of the property that's located on the corner of Rosemary between Wintergreen and Buttercup, zone single family A. Applicant is seeking to subdivide the property into 2 for future single family development. It is currently a vacant lot. Demolition of the previous structure was approved by the ARB and council last year. A replacement structure was not proposed at the time of the application. We actually did receive some plans today for a new single-family residence. We did receive plans today for a single-family residence. You'll see the existing conditions. So, and just so that you all know, the plans that we received are for the interior lot. So it'd be lots 24, 25, and half of 26. Replat establishing does meet the minimum lot area and width requirements. We did receive approval from CPS, SAWS, and Public Works regarding the replat. And it does meet the technical requirements listed in Chapter 3 zoning and Chapter 17, I'm sorry, subdivision codes. Construction of a new single-family residence would be subject to compatibility review by the ARB and approval by council. The replat request was approved due to inaction of the commission at their June 6th, 2022 hearing. We did mail postcards to property owners within the 200-foot radius. Notices were posted on the city's website and on the property. Legal notice was also posted in the San Antonio Express News. We do not show any responses here. However, I did provide you all with several responses that we received this afternoon. 4 of those in opposition are within the 200-foot radius, and the remaining 3 are outside of the 200-foot radius.
Letty, how many lots are there currently?
There are currently 5 lots.
5 lots, but 1 structure?
Correct. Well, there was 1 structure.
Was 1 structure, sure, understood. So I mean, I guess in its present incarnation, how many different structures could be built?
The way it is now is just one main structure and accessory structures, as is now.
I don't think the lots, I see what you're getting at. It looks like right now there's 5 different properties.
Oh, I see. Mhm.
There's one property.
One
They've
property
they've-
made up
they've-
of
5 lots.
multiple lots.
Because you look at the next one, it's 21 to 23.
No, yeah, no, that's
I've
what I
got
was trying, I was trying to wrap my head around that as to,
It's,
I guess,
really,
how that's been dealt with in the past.
it's really the question is
So the
changing it.
I mean, a lot of the properties within the city are made up of multiple lots or portions of.
I've got like 2 and a
So
half
that,
on my house.
So, going back to Ms. Flume's point about the demolition, that house is gone, there's nothing we can do or ever could do other than put somebody in a delay, and ultimately that house will be demolished. Now what we're talking about is 1 lot versus 2, and the 2 lots will be legal conforming lots
that is correct.
based on our code. And any development, whether 1 house or 2 houses, will come back and we'll go through the entire process for compatibility, et cetera.
Correct.
Okay, Phil, let's see, I don't know if any people in the audience, including Jack, might want to speak, or if there's any, let's see if there's anybody online that would like to speak to this first.
If there's anyone on the Zoom call that would like to speak on planning and zoning case number 420, planning and zoning case 420, please press *9 at this time. Yes, sir.
Nobody? Okay. Anybody here? I don't have the sign-up list. Did anybody sign up that wanted to speak? Okay. Is there anybody here that would like to speak on this item? Thanks,
I'm Jack Dabney, owner of Dabney Homes. I did apply for the demo permit a while back, and at the time I had I had a house to be built that was under contract for a private individual who has since purchased a $4 million piece of property somewhere else, so we're going to be building that home somewhere else. So I was left with this lot that is a very expensive lot. It is a very nice lot. I would love to build 1 home on there, but it is a huge expenditure to build that big a home on that expensive of a lot. And so I would like to divide the lot in half and build 2 very nice homes, not townhomes, not apartments, not anything like that. The home I've submitted is, I think it's 3,650 square feet. It is a 2-story home. It should meet all the requirements. I'm not asking for any variances or anything like that. I have done this before over on Cloverleaf, just 1 street before, where I purchased a lot the exact same size, built 2 beautiful homes, and it's, you know, they're in keeping with the neighborhood. People love them. I've never had any complaints or anything like that, so that's what I'm asking to do.
Great. Thanks, Jack. And for the neighbors, know that when Mr. Dabney or other builders come through, we're pretty sensitive to second floor windows, looming and height level of windows, in particular looming in between lots. And in this case, you've got
I think
2 of them.
I think, Jack, you know, I think you're within your legal right altogether. You know, I live in the neighborhood, and you know, I remember the Cloverleaf divide. a little bit more contentious. And, you know, one of the things, and I think it's kind of, this was actually before I was on council. I'll blame you.
I remember it. We
you
tried
know,
to mediate with neighbors.
I think you're within your legal right, and by that point, you know, I think we're kind of late to the game, but I do agree that, you know, the Bluebonnet Hills neighborhood, if we went and subdivided every single lot right now as a day, it would totally change the face of the neighborhood. And so, you know, I think you're right in legally to do it. I don't think it's necessarily appropriate for the neighborhood, but at this point, I think our hands are tied by the state law. Because, correct me if I'm wrong, Richard, but the state law basically says if you meet every, dot every I and cross every T, you have every legal right to do the subdivision. Is that correct?
That's correct. If y'all wanted to put conditions or wanted to deny it, we would have to actually cite a state law or an ordinance that gives us the basis to do so. We'd have to actually cite one. That's how strict state laws become.
And to be clear, there were no conditions when we approved the demolition and there was the original plan for the one structure. Could be no conditions on that, right?
Yeah.
I don't see how, I don't remember a condition. I would be surprised if if we put a condition like that on that.
And no,
It would have been like Mr. Collins tonight. It was just on the demolition, and then the project will have to come back.
right. And so any plans were just that, not, there's no other obligation or commitment or anything binding.
It meets the technical requirements of our code and state law.
And if we denied it today, we would be outside of state law, is that correct?
That's correct. And state law has put, last legislative session, they put another 5 or 6 laws that have appeal processes, and the state does not want cities to play games with this part of the development process. They have really tightened the city's discretion on this particular stage.
You know, I totally agree. I understand. I don't think it is. I really don't like the idea of dividing these properties, and we keep running into this issue of states' rights and property rights versus municipal overview. And Jack, I understand you probably had a pro forma at one point that made it work, and we've only added $100 per square foot in construction costs over the past 2 years. And so I don't think you are trying to ruin the neighborhood. And I know you're not, and but I think, buddy, from this, I'd like to do a review of our subdivision properties, especially in the Bluebonnet Hills neighborhood. There's quite a few properties like this. We've run into this issue before. The neighbors complain on if we did a review, 8 years ago.
They just keep taking more, the state keeps taking more and more of our rights away to do anything. So, yeah, I'm happy to look at this and see whether there's
to prevent anything in the future, and to see if we can maintain some integrity of the existing neighborhood fabric.
We'll take a look at it and see. As long as state law doesn't supersede it, then we're happy to bring any changes that you guys would like to see. But
they've just superseded
as it
so
stands
much
today,
I will say, Jack, there's obviously half a dozen people, neighbors that sent us notes, and to the neighbors, Jack has been cooperative in meeting with neighbors to try and resolve issues. Depends on the tenor of the discussions and the neighbors. I know we had a rough one on one particular that I don't think was your fault. I think it was a neighbor who wasn't going to win, but items like side windows and between the two houses and that sort of thing. When it comes time, that we'd appreciate that as you go through the process. Council, any more discussion? I think.
As unfortunate as I don't agree with the subdivision of the lot, but I think the law is, we've run into this. I know y'all probably have not run into this personally in the past, but we've probably run into it, I don't know, a dozen times a year.
It's hopeless for the homeowners that live there. We have no say. That's what you're saying.
That is correct. Yeah. Per the state law, if you meet the letter of the law, you have the right to do with your property. Right.
And unfortunately, over the last several legislative sessions, the state started taking away more and more of our rights and our ability. We can't monitor materials. What else do they take away? I mean, color, we can't monitor.
Can't regulate.
Everything
A whole lot of the aesthetic character.
Everything has just become advisory.
Paperwork, why do we even come here? The protest doesn't, it's cooked in the books. I mean, we don't have any recourse, really.
Well,
I went to a continuing education resource with
We have no, we have
with
no.
developers and lawyers and city lawyers, and that was the only thing the developer lawyers and the government lawyers both agreed on is, why have this process? Because it gives the citizens
The citizens don't
False hope.
matter.
no. I think you're right. It's, as Lawson says, we don't have any choice tonight because it's a legally conforming lots. And the important time for discussion will be when plans are submitted and the builder starts going to the next
We're
step.
still gonna have two houses there. We're still gonna have a house, I guarantee you, looking on the back of that guy's
Yep.
yard. We're still gonna have traffic, all those things, he's gonna make his money because he needs to make more money. We have to live with it for the next 20-something years. He's not gonna live on that street.
We are, what,
I don't care if you live in a neighborhood, you're not living on my street with the
We're-
two houses.
we are 100% supportive of the concern. And the place to make the argument now, unfortunately, is state legislature. I've talked to Steve Allison many times.
He could build one nice house if he wanted to, and someone would buy it. He has a choice.
Up to him.
There is a choice at the end of the day,
It's up to him.
but he really wants to make two.
That being said, I'll have to move for approval.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we move to item 13, discussion and possible action on revisions to the plan review process for residential, commercial, and multifamily projects. Phil?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The item before you this evening are proposed revisions to the plan review process to give property owners some additional opportunities to get features of their property reviewed earlier in the city's development process. Plan review is currently the primary process for to review proposed projects, whether those are development or redevelopment efforts. The plan review process is overseen by the Community Development Services Department. Proposed changes to that are being reviewed this evening would give the results of variances sooner in that development process. The intent is to provide decisions regarding the project's design so that they can be incorporated into the plans the applicant submits to the city for formal plan review. This would apply to residential, commercial, and multifamily projects. Currently, any activity, whether it be construction or demolition, requires plan review at this time. The process that's in place, applicant would submit construction-ready plans to the city. Those plans would be reviewed by city staff. And then staff on their review would confirm if there's any boards or commissions that would need to review those plans. And in some cases, whether it's architectural review board or planning and zoning, city council would also be under consideration or consider the item. If all of those steps are followed, then the building permit would be issued and construction can begin thereafter. The outcome of those boards and commission meetings may impact the final design of the proposed project, and that's what we're here to discuss today. This is particularly true of the Board of Adjustment, which makes rulings on variance requests. Those requests are exemptions to the zoning code and other building-related codes. Typically, those involve footprint, density, height, and other features of the project. If the Board of Adjustment was to deny a variance request, the modified plans showing the compliance are required, which will require an update to those plans that are submitted to the city. This requires additional time and expense for the applicant and the property owner. The options before council this evening to address this would be to acknowledge and accept the preliminary documents for BOV review would be accepted by the city. We would accept applicant-identified variances for Board of Adjustment consideration prior to staff plan review. So these would be identified by the actual applicant and say, I need these variances before BOA. After that, staff would conduct a full plan review after the ruling by BOA, and the full plans would be submitted. And again, this would apply to residential, commercial, and multifamily projects. There are some considerations the council should be made aware of. There would be less expensive upfront costs, we anticipate that, because the need to go back and resubmit plans or redevelop plans would lessen that with this initial pass before BOA. The BOA ruling would be received earlier in the development process, so applicants would know kind of their parameters earlier on. However, there would be potentially longer time periods between the initial application and the building permit issuance, because you are adding an additional step at the beginning of the project of going to BOA and then submitting the plans for plan review. It is also possible the project may go to BOA more than once. The first pass would be those variances that an applicant or the developer or property owner would identify, and then during plan review, staff may identify additional variances that would have to go back to BOA for their consideration. And then during the actual BOA proceedings, the staff's knowledge of the specifics of the project would be minimal because they have not conducted the plan review. So they'd be able to speak in generalities about the zoning code, but not anything specific to the project that's being proposed. If the options proposed this evening were approved, applicants may choose the existing plan review process where they submit the plans and then go through the process, or they can forego that plan review and submit directly to BOA for their consideration. Preliminary review fees may apply if they select this new avenue, this new path, and the existing timeline for review would remain in effect. So that timeline would not adjust with this proposal. This has been reviewed with the city attorney and our city manager, and we're not anticipating any fiscal impact with this item. This concludes my presentation. I stand for any questions.
Thanks, Phil. So obviously this stems from us having a lot of cases where people have to do a tremendous amount of work without knowing where it's headed, whether it's on my residential remodel or a building on Austin Highway. And you've looked at this and have the most firsthand experience with it.
I've been pushing for this. This kind of brings us actually into what the city of San Antonio does, because you essentially, you have this, give you a for example, if you've got a property on Broadway, for instance, right? We have a 0-foot setback requirement. You have to be 0 foot. Well, say you're going to do a $100 million development, and you have to do $100 million. That's $5 to $10 million of design. If you have to request a variance, and you're banking on it being 10-foot setback, well, why would you go spend $10 million on design if you don't get that variance at the very, very end? So that's the kind of what we're trying to do is allow folks to come in and go, hey, if I can get a 5-foot variance on this thing, I can make this project work. And it allows the developer not to dig in their heels as well in that early process of.
So is it like a pre-approval type of thing?
It's saying, like, for instance, if we take the Catherine Court project, right? He had to, as a for example, he had to do all of that design up front, and his main question was his parking ratio and his density. If we had told him, if we had done that variance process in the very beginning without doing full fire lane design, all that stuff, and they said, hey, they're not gonna give you a variance on parking density and that, he would have come in with something different. The developer would have not dug in heels nearly as much, because at some point you have sunken cost of the design, so you end up getting more galvanized throughout the process versus being a little bit more,
What does it do, if anything, to the, public notice and citizen engagement? Anything?
It's the same exact process at that point.
Yeah, That's correct. Any item before, on the BOA agenda would serve full notice to properties, surrounding properties.
This would go on that agenda?
It would go on the Board of
preliminary request?
Yes, it's just, it would not undergo, it would still be a public hearing, a public comment. It just hasn't gone through staff review prior to going to Board of Adjustment.
In San Antonio, if a developer will sometimes, like, they'll buy a property and hold it in, what's the word? Where they don't execute, where they have their due diligence period, and they'll go get a variance. And if they don't get the variance during that due diligence period, the property won't sell. So that's kind of the thought process here is like, hey, do you get that variance, know that variance is available to you so that you don't have to go commit the resources and the hoopla and then get it all rejected. So I think it's a good deal. And then at the end of the day, it's on the developer or the homeowner or whoever. If their plans come in and they don't meet the variances that they've got, they got to do the process over again. They got to get a different variance.
So what does this do procedurally to decisions that come out of that preliminary analysis by BOA in terms of appeals and the judicial component to it? Does that trigger that court process then, or does it wait?
If it's a decision by the BOA, it's all the same, because that's all state law. So if the BOA makes a decision, whether it's early or late, it's all going to be the same, because that's all driven by state law.
Yeah, all I'm asking is it going to generate that right of appeal on the preliminary decision just as it would on a later one?
Yes. It's not a preliminary decision.
It's
It is a
Preliminary application.
It's a variance application before they get 100% construction documents, right? So they're gonna go, I just need 5 feet. Can I get a 5-foot variance in this area? And it's because my property has, and they're gonna show something. They're gonna show a drawing, or elevations. You're gonna see what it looks like. But they don't have to go to full-on engineering and everything like that.
And I think it's important to note it, when you're talking about developer, it's not just you developing a project on Broadway, it's me doing a project on my residence.
Right, it applies to residential also.
Yes.
Right, so if I have my house is 4-foot setback and it's required a 6-foot setback, I wanna do an addition, I don't wanna go pay an architect, all that money to go, oh, I have to move my existing house over 2 foot to get it back into compliance, or my addition, can I follow the line of my existing house because it's grandfathered? That's another way to put it.
Can we let Letty have a few words?
Yeah, sure, please.
The only concern I have is that I don't want an applicant or an owner to think that if they've come before the BOA and they get approval of a variance or a specific variance, this actually case on Circle is a perfect example. They asked for and were approved for a front yard setback variance at the time that they submitted that preliminary document. Now that they've gone through the replat, we've already just automatically identified based on the size that they're going to need more variances. And so I don't want them to think that, well, the board's already approved this based on this preliminary footprint design, so therefore it should.
You don't have any other variances.
So at a BOA meeting, would BOA or a representative of the city say, yeah, this works, but this isn't the only issue that you're going to have with this project?
So at the time that we did the BOA hearing for that one, we didn't have the specifics for like the proposed, basically the replat establishing. We didn't have any of that information. Those are all things that we would have reviewed or looked further into during the review process. So at this time, he has, the good thing for the way we actually suggested that they, with their approval, that they do a conditional based on the replat and the rezone. So that kind of ties it, puts a little bit of a hold on it, but technically at this point, we've given them a front yard setback variance. If they decide not to build that duplex, they can come back with something else and utilize that setback variance.
you could, on the warning that, hey, you might need to come back for additional variances on this new process, that could be something administratively you could put on the if it's a different application, the actual paperwork, you can do some things administratively without council or BOA.
Right,
And
so
that could
I
be like a
actually,
warning you put on the actual application language or.
I did
something like
relay
that.
that information to him, just so that he was aware, because we typically don't, and I know that this was kind of you know, a concern, so I went ahead and accepted it. But I did tell him, if there's anything else that comes up during the review process, that means we'll have to send you back. You'll get further delayed, and he was fine with that. I think it was, he needed to close on the property and was pressed on time, but.
And I guess that way he knew he was gonna get his 5 foot before
Right.
going through the process.
It's, I mean, if I'm doing an addition to my house, like I know, like I had an elevation done in my house, perfect example. And I know I'm gonna have a variance request. I don't want that architect to keep going until I have, that variance in place. And I don't know if that variance is gonna get done or not. So I take that elevation to the BOA and I say, hey, this is the variance I'm looking at. And they go, great, you've got it. And I go, now, if I get to the end of that and my architect's finished and we're submitting and all of a sudden Letty catches, hey, by the way, you have a square footage issue and you're gonna have to get that variance too. Well, I'm gonna start over again.
Yeah, it's
But
still-
that's my
it's still on
response.
you- it's
It's
still
my
yours.
responsibility to do that. And so it gives you in that option to like, hey, I can get in a little, make sure that we can get this done before I go and, spend $40,000 on an architect to draw all this and then pay him to redo it when I don't get a variance. And this is in keeping with generally the model outside of our city.
It seems worth doing until we get caught in a trap, right, and unintentional consequences, but, I mean, I think we've had so many people that have had to spend so much on any project, that if we can negate some of that at the outset, it seems that it would make some sense.
Well, and we're just presenting it as an option, right?
Yeah.
You choose your own path, I guess.
Correct.
And I do want to add that staff, we do make ourselves available for applicants to reach out to us by phone, in person, multiple meetings.
Oh, we know, and we appreciate it more than you
Yes.
can imagine.
Yes, y'all are the most approachable staff in the county. But anyways, so
Well, I
do we need
think-
to approve or is this a staff report?
Well, and this, the attempt for this is because we've heard, and as you're saying, you have multiple paths you can do it. You could also build a project that required no variances too, right? So, so it's a risk. And if you want to take that risk and save yourself some money, and this benefits the homeowner on single family A all the way up through commercial, especially when you get into multiple millions of dollars that somebody would spend. So there's still options here, but it seems like a good deal.
Do we need to approve or is this a staff report?
It's an action item.
Okay.
You-
I'll move for approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank you for all the analysis and the time, and let's just see how much it helps us, but I don't see it hurting.
Yeah.
And thank you for your input. Okay.
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I don't know if it's proper, but I'd like to, can we go back to Roseberry a little bit, or no? We've got the,
Probably
That's
after the meeting,
close.
you and I and maybe one other council member could talk about it,
okay.
right, without it being a
Yeah, the
walking
actions,
corn.
the action has
I
been
don't wanna
done.
discuss the action, that's not, I'm good with that, but I just wanna discuss some ideas, because frankly, it alarms me that the state takes away our powers to control our city.
That would probably be outside this agenda anyway, so.
We can bring you an agenda item back if you want, so we can queue it up and discuss it all you want.
Yeah,
Yeah, let's do that.
States' rights versus our rights?
Yeah.
Or lack thereof?
Well, and some of these zoning issues and things like this and rezones, and we'll certainly bring something to you guys so you can discuss it.
Well, real just quickly, I mean, I wonder if there's not some lobbying group that, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of other cities in the state like us that are not real happy about this, and somehow if we could band together and go to the legislature and say,
All of them.
I think it starts at the top with more control. At least that's what our state senators told us. right?
We're getting in trouble.
We are,
Yeah.
okay.
We need to
All
move
right,
on.
Architecture Review Board, Architecture Review Board case number 883, an ordinance amending the actions of the Architecture Review Board by amending the city's Code of Ordinances, Chapter 2, Article 3, Section 2-48, Architecture Review Board. Phil?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. This is an item also related to states for city control. The item this evening before you is a number of proposed amendments to the City Code section for the Architecture Review Board, which is Chapter 2 of City Code. The item this evening proposes to amend the Architecture Review Board section of City Code. These changes include modifying language to make ARB recommendations issued by majority vote, clarifies that ARB is a recommending body for City Council, and clarifies possible City Council action on ARB cases that are before you. Currently, ARB acts as an advisory board to provide recommendations to City Council. It's part of the plan review process. There's two main priorities that ARB oversees. They determine the significance of structures proposed for demolition, and then they promote the compatibility of potential developments. Currently, ARB recommendations require a minimum of 4 affirmative votes. Quorum is 4 members, so if there's only 4 attendees, all 4 have to vote in favor of a recommendation for it to be issued to City Council. We encountered an issue a couple of weeks ago where there was a quorum of 4 people, but there was a 3-1 vote in favor of a recommendation. That basically failed, so there was no recommendation that was issued to City Council on that item.
It's Catholic Court.
ARB provides recommendations to Council that the proposed project be approved, disapproved, or approved with modifications. That's the language that's currently in our code, and so we're looking at that as well. The options before you this evening would provide that recommendations issued would be through a majority of ARB members that are present at the meeting. Currently, again, it's a minimum of 4 members. This would change it to just a simple majority. ARB makes recommendations to Council regarding design of project. That would also change some of the language to focus on the recommendation, as that's the role of this of ARB. And when considering ARB recommendations, Council may approve the project recommendation with modifications, or disapprove the project recommendation. Again, we're focusing on the recommendation because of current state law. There's limits to approving the project or disapproving a project, and so we wanted to update this language to reflect that current reality that we're in.
Should I ask questions now as we go through, or wait till you're done and come back to the end? Okay.
And then last but not least, one of the options that's currently available is Council can refer an application back to ARB. This would tweak some of the language to that would be allowed if there's additional information that was not considered by the ARB at the time that it was presented to them. In addition to the updates to the language to the City Code, there's some procedural options that are being explored. Council currently, or what's being proposed is Council may approve ARB recommendations via consent agenda under certain conditions. This would be in the case of residential cases and receiving unanimous vote from ARB to approve the design as presented. So if it's a residential case, unanimous, and there's no changes to the design as presented, then those could be approved by Council via consent agenda. Council, reversely, if Council would receive a full briefing for ARB cases that involve multifamily, commercial, or residential cases that where ARB does not provide a recommendation, where ARB adopts a recommendation but with measures to achieve greater compatibility, or residential where the vote for ARB recommendation is not unanimous. So it's a 3-1 vote, then you guys would hear a full presentation. Staff proposed, or presented these proposed revisions to ARB at the April 19th, 2022 meeting, and they voted unanimously to recommend the proposed amendments. This has been coordinated through the city attorney and the city manager, and there's no fiscal impact anticipated with this proposal. This concludes my presentation. Stand for any questions you may have.
So,
Two questions.
go ahead.
So on the back, right there. Approved project recommendations with modifications. So legally, we can do that?
That's all they can do.
ARB can make recommendations
But,
to you.
but council may approve project recommendations with modifications. Okay, is that even within,
We would
rights?
advise you at the time.
huh?
If we had concerns about your legal ability to force modifications, depending on what the modifications were at the time, we would provide you guidance.
Okay. But typically, we have not been able to just, if they want the doors green, we cannot.
Yeah, we can't, I mean, that's.
Right,
that
that's
goes
the whole-
Back to our.
So now we
our-
can talk about it.
Yeah, that goes back to our whole state. That goes back to our whole state technical issue.
I got you
Remember,
there.
We've talked about not even having an ARB, because they're just recommending. I kind of like the idea of having them to vet, because they're more experienced in that than a lot of us. But the ARB really, I mean, the P and Z at Rosemary, it comes forward without a P and Z. This just stalls a deal, and so I like some of these changes to, it's hard to get people to serve, and especially now it's a recommending agency. Sorry, you got another question.
So, the consent process, is that something where we would see basically like one line item on an agenda, and we kind of do more of a cursory review, and there may be like 5 or 6 houses on that? And so we're not doing, it's basically saving some meeting time?
It's exactly what it is.
Okay.
It's a consent agenda if there's
Is-
no
is it-
opposition.
To that point, though, I asked Buddy, just because it passes ARB unanimously, if 3 people show up and they're against it, people can still sign up to speak on a consent agenda.
Right.
item.
That was what
So-
I was gonna ask, is there
Yeah.
public comment on a consent
Yeah.
agenda?
Yes.
Yes.
'Cause
Yes.
that's the one thing I was sensitive to, reading through that, is it's not wanting to further limit the perception that citizens have no input on some of these decisions.
And y'all can pull items. If it's 5 houses on the consent agenda, a council person can pull one of those items. I move to pull item C from the consent agenda for individual consideration.
So you could vote the other ones through and then talk further about any dispute issue. It doesn't hold up all the other houses.
It's an effort to expedite, but I think it still is one we would definitely want to ask for citizen input, for citizens to have the ability, and for any of us to, and for any of us to discuss it, because there may only be 2 ARB members that vote on something, and, 3 show up and 2 vote on it, and all of a sudden we're relying on those 2. Well, we may want to look at that in more detail.
Well, it's up to you guys. I mean, we don't have
And,
to do any of
and
this.
so just to clarify, ARB is a recommended body only, except for signage? Don't they have full authority on signage? You cannot get past ARB with the sign.
It's addressed in our code. I mean, there's a whole chapter.
Right,
Chapter
so I just want to be clear,
19,
ARB
I
is
think.
not just a recommending body, actually. They do have final say on signs, correct?
Correct, but then there is an appeal process to council.
But they do have
But they
full
do
power
have
on the
full power.
signage. So do we need to modify the recommending body deal, or is the signage just for that? Except for signage,
To
you know?
express where they're just a recommending body, and
Right,
this-
'cause
if
it-
we're gonna approve this.
They are a judicial body, or, I don't know, judicial.
No, they're not. They're not recognized by the state
They're a regulatory body on signage,
enforcing the code, but y'all still have the final say on that.
but they have more
Just for
latitude.
appeal.
Correct.
Well, for appeal. Is that correct?
They have more legal
Signage doesn't
latitude.
go to council. Unless they appeal.
Right.
Okay,
Just making sure everybody knows.
all right. So,
Well, if you have recommendations on something you want to change, or if you want us to bring it back to you, we can do that too.
If you go to the definition of ARB, Maybe, no, I'll move to approve. I'm good.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
But I hear where he's going, and that is maybe the language should include something
Tighten it
about,
up a little to make
the
clear
signage.
which,
except with respect to signage.
Okay, so do you want us to add signage to that? I mean, because we'd probably need to redo the vote to say with conditions, right?
I didn't see any legal language that we were reviewing. I mean,
You're still approving as a recommendation.
It is a.
You're still a,
The item is an ordinance that's approving the
Yeah.
language of the city code.
Do you have the ordinance with you?
look, I'll just.
There was no proposed changes to this
Can
language.
well, let me just redo the motion real quick. I move to approve amending that they clarify signage, review. How's that?
Clarify that the ARB is to continue the current process. The ARB is the final say for signage with city council for final appeal.
Ditto.
Perfect. Motion second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you, Richard.
You got all that, Elsa?
Very, very well done, right before item 15. Discussion and possible action to authorize the city manager to renew agreement for legal services on behalf of the city with Frank Garza with Davidson Trillo, Raymond Garza, PC, as city attorney.
how fitting.
Yes, right? Those were all toss-ups to get to
Yeah,
this one.
we're warming up to that. Okay, so our legal services, city attorney, again, you guys know what they do, look at our agreements, contracts, deeds, easements, ordinances, and resolutions. They do act and come to board and commission meetings if they're needed and provide, we spend a lot of time on the phone for legal advice and consultation with staff, advise us on elections, open meetings, and so forth. Frank Garza of Davidson, Torrio, Ream, and Garza has served as our attorney since July 8th, 2019, officially. They stepped in on an interim basis on April of 2019. We did go out for an RFQ process during that time, and actually Frank recommended that we do that at that time. And they were selected as a part of that process. Chapter 2254.004 of the Local Government Code requires that we get the most highly qualified provider of services on basis of demonstrated competence and qualifications. Is similar with engineers and other professional services that we do, and that we negotiate with that provider at a fair and reasonable price. So he has some key experience, ongoing legal advice in highly complex cases. And the entire team with Richard and Frank and all their partners, they support us at all of our meetings, helped us with charter amendments years ago. They have provided employee training for sexual harassment and so forth. Contract term would again be for 3 years with a renewal option if mutually agreed to by both parties. That's a little bit different than our prior one. Cancellation 60 days by either party with or without cause. The fee schedule, as you can see, the partners $220 an hour, the prior was $200, associates $190, prior was $175, and higher fees for court litigation if necessary. Funds are included in our city budget, and that's all that I have.
Counsel?
Lawyers?
Lawyers? Pretty good billable rate.
Yeah, I haven't seen rates that look like that.
No, and all kidding aside,
I
you
like
guys,
work, too.
I think you guys have done a great job. Hiccups here and there as you learn the codes, but there's something to be said for having people that have the experience and know our codes and are here to help us at every turn. So,
All right. Move for approval?
motion- Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. Thank y'all. Okay, we move to close session, executive session per section 551.074, personnel matters to discuss evaluation, compensation, and duties of certain city employees, and we're going out at 6:55 PM.
Did you see Karen? I didn't realize she's on John Cornyn's finance.
I didn't either.
Well, I mean, shit, right? Last names, one thing.
Okay, we are back from closed session at 7:23. Blake?
I move we adjourn this meeting.
Great, thank y'all. Thanks for staying so late and staying on the phone with us, guys.
You know, I'm gonna be in Indiana.
Recording stopped.